On our agenda, we'll have several items. It'll be third and final reading of our annual budget and a few other accompanying items that will conclude the budget for the FY19 season, or at least the adoption thereof. We also have several special recognition items this evening. We will honor our employees and play like a champion this evening. We're very happy to do that, very proud of that as well. This evening we'll also take a quick adjournment and meet as a beer board and have a public hearing on a beer permit as well. Tonight our invocation will be led by Public Works Director Bo Mills. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Alderman Rocky Yonda. Please rise.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for this good day and for your many blessings. As we approach the 4th of July and our independence, thank you for democracy, and thank you for this council that we have here tonight to make decisions and to provide policy for this great city. We just ask, Lord, you'd bless staff and protect us as we do our jobs, and just be present in this meeting tonight as we conduct the business of this great city. We pray these things in your precious name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. That takes us to item number 4 on the agenda. It's actually setting the agenda. The agenda is published to the public about 7 to 10 days prior to the meeting. In executive session, the board meets at 5:30 each day and goes over the agenda. At that particular time, there were no modifications or adjustments to the agenda. Are there any at this time? Alderman Yonda?
Would this be the time to ask for an an agenda item to come in the future?
Yes.
Okay. I was reading through some of my emails and some social media, and I realized that an injustice, in my opinion, needs to be corrected considering our moratorium resolution 18R03. We passed this in January of 2018, placing an 18-month moratorium on new apartments, including locations within mixed-use project developments. Several projects were excluded from this moratorium because they already had some kind of form of approval. I support this moratorium. However, at the time, I was unaware of the impact this would have on one of our largest economic development projects in our community. Sort of an unintended consequences, to tell you the truth. That being the total redevelopment of an existing retail center in our community to a true mixed-use project. This is Care For at Kirby Woods. I have seen the proposed redevelopment presented by Mr. Cannon, and it incorporates all the key elements we as a community are looking for on the western edge of our city, and as a component of the Western Gateway Small Area Plan, of which he was a participant, financially also. It is a wonderful combination of office, retail, hospitality, and residential use. The plan has the support of the Economic Development Commission, who through a letter of support from the EDC chairman, Mr. Jerry Klein, asked the BMA to consider removing the Care For development from the moratorium. The plan also has the support from the Germantown Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, who through a letter of support from Mrs. Janie Day, President and CEO, cited the substantial impact this type of redevelopment has on the city's tax base and economy. In light of this, and the earlier action by the board, I respectfully request that the board direct the administration to prepare an amendment to Resolution 18R03 and exclude the redevelopment of Care For at Kirby Woods Shopping Center from the moratorium, thus allowing the owners to explore a mixed-use development of this property. If we could do that in the next couple of months, if July or whatever, if the board is willing to head in that direction.
Thank you, Alderman. As it's the practice of the board and the process, any item that needs to be added to the agenda can be added to a future agenda. City administrator will poll the board and see if there's a willingness to bring that forward at a future meeting, and the city administrator will be in touch with you. Are there any other items to be adjusted to the agenda for this evening? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
Second. A motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
The agenda has been set for this evening. It takes us to item 5 on the agenda, approval of the June 11th, 2018 minutes. During executive session, there were no corrections to the minutes. Are there any at this time? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. That takes us to our first of three special recognition items this evening. Item 6A, Play Like a Champion, Class of 2018. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor. Several years ago, the city administration developed an employee engagement program entitled Play Like a Champion Today. The very successful program, came about as a request by city employees to learn more about their city organization, everything from animal control to zoning. The results have produced greater awareness among our employees, as well as a strong sense of teamwork and cooperation with these participants as they gain greater respect and awareness of the fellow individuals in their class in the different departments and the responsibilities that we all take on to make this wonderful city and our organization function as a team and as a whole. It has truly become our internal leadership development program for city employees. In an offer to foster innovation and creativity into the program and allow it to be employee-driven, the administration stepped away from the program. Not that we were abandoning it, but we felt it would be better served by a board of directors that was comprised of city employees who have put in place the curriculum, they review the class selection, they monitor results, and they do an after-action review to make sure things went well during the class period as they were intended to. And now, Mayor, Mayor and Board, it's time to recognize the 10 graduates of the class of 2018. And Michelle Betty will introduce the class members. And Mayor, I think you and I need to come down and hand out some hardware. And then Dana Galley, the Play Like a Champion current board, Dana, wave, would also like to present the Play Like a Champion Leadership Award.
Jessica Comas, Administration. Michelle Forbert, Parks and Recreation. Sarah Gorleski, Economic and Community Development. John Hanna, Police Department. Sandy Hudson, Animal Control. Teresa Hudson of Court was unable to attend tonight. Jack Lewis, Fleet Services. Sarah Soltau, Parks and Recreation. Ola Terrell Jordan, Human Resources. Emily Westbrook, Administration.
There we are. At the end of every year, the Play Like a Champion graduating class is asked to submit nominees for the Play Like a Champion Leadership Award. This award honors a current class member who demonstrated the following attributes during the year: having a positive attitude, accepting 100% responsibility, taking the initiative to learn, and participating on all levels. This all-in attitude is vital to the growth and development of future leaders. Therefore, it is fitting that the award's recipient should exemplify these ideals. The recipient's name will be added to a permanent plaque at City Hall, which is this one. as well as submitted to Kiwanis as a nominee for the Germantown Kiwanis Municipal Employee of the Year Award. I am pleased to announce that the 2018 recipient of the Play Like a Champion Leadership Award is Sarah Garluski.
Thank you. Thank you.
And further, due to the Play Like a Champion board having staggered terms, myself as board president and Ida Griffith as secretary, our terms have ended, and the current Play Like a Champion class and board have selected 2 new members, which will be Sandy Hudson and Jessica Comas, to fill these positions.
All right. Thank you. Special thanks to the Board of Directors that put this together, for staff and for administration for seeing value in having a program that is this worthwhile for our employees. As you can tell, they take a great amount of pride in their rotations they make throughout the city and all that they learn, and then they become, I guess, they're already great teammates, but they learn what their other teammates are doing. So we applaud everything that you've done, and we join you in this celebration. That brings us to item 6B on the agenda this evening. We have 2 Beautification Business Awards. Vice Mayor Gibson will lead us there.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask Pam Beasley with our Parks and Recreation Department to come forward, as well as Mr. Albert Pope with our Beautification Commission, and Mr. Britt Hubbard with Brightview Landscaping. And Pam, if you could do the honors of presenting with Albert. The purpose of this agenda item is to recognize Kingsway Christian Church, located at 7887 Poplar Avenue, as the recipient of the May Beautification Business Award, and to recognize Campbell's Clinic, located at 1400 Germantown Road, as the recipient of the June Beautification Award. Kingsway Christian Church is well known for their professionally installed and beautifully maintained landscape and gardens. Lush landscape beds surround the entire facility, featuring fashion azaleas. Knockout roses flank the front of the chapel, with crepe myrtles accenting the entrance. Low-growing evergreens add to the plant palette and are drought-tolerant. Eric Dalton with the Ground Guys Landscaping Company maintains the landscaping. At Campbell Clinic, they've been a leader in the field of orthopedics for over 60 years. This property has always had exceptional curb appeal, catching the eye of all who pass by this medical facility. The grounds are planted with annual color along the permanent greenway, where boxwoods, hollies, and other evergreen shrubs are located. A variety of shade trees complement the lush turf and beautiful architecture of the buildings. Mr. Britt Hubbard with Brightview Landscaping maintains this site. The level of landscape detail, maintenance, and care of these Germantown properties demonstrate pride in their appearance and their commitment to helping the city look beautiful. The Beautification Commission expresses much appreciation for their efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We are very grateful when our business property owners take great care of their property. It brings great value to the city of Germantown and adds to the beauty of the city as well. So we join in your celebration as well. That brings us to item 6C on the agenda this evening. Special Recognition Rebuild Tennessee Award, Thornwood. And before Mr. Cameron Ross comes forward, I would just like to recognize, and I think it'll be on the part of this program, but Ralph Moore, the Executive Director for the Memphis Area Association of Governments, is here this evening as well. So thank you for being in attendance. Mr. Ross?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. It's my pleasure this evening to recognize on behalf of the Tennessee Development District Association and the Memphis Area Association of Governments to recognize Thornwood for the Rebuild Tennessee Award. Just as a little bit of background, the Tennessee Development District Association recognizes a project each year from their 9 development districts, and the project needs to promote a positive quality of life for citizens in addition to serving as a symbol of sustainable growth and development in the community. This award, the John S. Wilder Rebuild Tennessee Award, was awarded to Thornwood back in spring. Mayor Palazzolo, City Administrator Patrick Lawton, along with Representative Kevin Vaughn and Senator Brian Kelsey were all in attendance for the award presentation. Memphis Area Association of Governments, along with the Tennessee Development District Association, selected Thornwood based on the precedents that it sets in Germantown as the first mixed-use project to be constructed under the city's Smart Code ordinance. It embodies the spirit and intent of the city's smart growth plan that was started in 2007. It is located in the city's central business district at the intersection of Germantown and Neshoba and covers approximately 17 acres using proven urban design and planning principles that have been implemented by other vibrant mixed-use development projects around the world. Developed by McNeil Commercial Real Estate, the project began construction in 2015 and at this point has 5 phases that consist of 108-room Hilton-branded Hampton Inn and Suites that I'd like to add stays at a continuous level of high occupancy within the city, which we're all very happy for. 276 multifamily units, 25 of which are located above the retail spaces, and an additional 41,500 square feet of retail and restaurant space, and 2 of those restaurants have patio seating design into the buildings. A notable element of this site plan, which is atypical for suburban redevelopment, is the U-shaped building at the corner that hides structured parking, and the structured parking for the multifamily project was designed so that it worked with the topography of the land so that they could essentially tuck it into the sides of the land, which lowered the amount of dirt that was removed from the site. This creative approach hides the parking from view and limits approximately 80% of the parking from view from the general public, but it really ties together the user experience into a holistic project incorporating walkability, sittability, and just a general sense of place within the development to utilize, to stay, shop, live, play, etc. And it really takes advantage, again, of the natural topography, which was a sustainable use of the site. In addition to constructing buildings that are closer to the street, creating engaging spaces rather than just parking fields, the site is also designed around a central feature, which is a 73-foot loose frame steel clock with an octagonal-shaped water feature at the base, a copper roof, 8-foot mechanical clocks that face all directions, and bronze bells that were cast in 1903 and repurposed from a church that was demolished in New Jersey in 2014. This is based around a common area and project drives that enter from public streets and are positioned to focus guests as well as residents in line of sight to the clock tower, fountain, and the pocket park that will be referred to as the Commons. This landscape park center will also provide seating areas and programmed activities for residents of Germantown as well as residents of Thornwood. The Smart Code of Germantown has encouraged the use of pedestrian-friendly walkways as a tool to attract and facilitate visitors and residents accessing and using the development without need of car once they get there. The developer, and this is also atypical of a developer, focused on the sidewalks. It's rare that you meet a developer that pays as much attention to sidewalks as Spence Ray has paid attention to sidewalks as part of this project. By creating 12 to 18-foot wide sidewalks with tree wells and bench seating, connecting the project's interior drives to the frontage, he's created an inviting space where families can spread across and hold hands as they walk down and experience the place, rather than getting in line like little ducklings marching to wherever our wonderful geese go. He's created an engaging space, again, that also accommodates residents, bicycle users. It connects to the greenway nearby so that visitors can come from the greenway and also park their bicycles, and residents of Thornwood will enjoy secured bicycle parking and a bicycle repair center as another amenity to this project. While each building in Thornwood is unique in its architecture, the architectural elevations were consistent to reflect 18th century buildings that are more common to downtown Charleston and Savannah. And these building materials consist of wood molded brick, quarried Indiana limestone, which will help to maintain continuity in design throughout the project and consistency with buildings of that era. As it relates to Germantown Forward 2030, this project fulfills the strategic objectives of encouraging development in key commercial areas under economic development, as well as land use and transportation objectives 2 and 3, which is to significantly improve walkability in Germantown's central business district, and for Germantown to be regionally recognized as a leader for improved access and mobility for all forms of transportation. And then it encourages wellness objective 1, which is a majority of residents engage in healthy physical behavior. So it's my pleasure to recognize Thornwood for this achievement and to thank Thornwood for their investment into the city of Germantown.
Come forward. Well, we have 2 awards to present tonight, and I will get one of them out of the way. One goes to the City of Germantown, so I'll present that to Cameron Ross, our Community and Economic Development Director, for shepherding this project. And without the Memphis Area Association of Governments, we would not have been recommended and nominated, so we thank you. CEO Moore, thank you very much. And then I'd like to present this to McNeil Commercial Real Estate on behalf of the state of Tennessee, MAAG, and the city of Germantown. Thank you for great work in making our city very much a sense of place. Thank you. Would you like to make a few comments? Yeah.
We appreciate the ability to be a part of Germantown and to build here. We're committed to trying to deliver a project to the city and to the residents that you feel is of the quality and character that you feel your community is worthy of. And we're very excited the closer we get to the end. My wife says I work faster and longer, and I don't know that that's speeding it up, but we do believe that the product that we're going to deliver is going to be really exciting and it's going to be embraced by a very, just a great group of residents. I will tell you, just out of happenstance this morning, I got an email from the Fogelman Company who's going to manage one of the buildings in Thornwood, and there is a resident in Somerset who's a very well-known resident of Shelby County in this area, very respected, who's bought a home over there, but their parents are moving to Germantown. And he called and just wanted to let me know that his parents wanted to move to Thornwood, but they don't want to own a home. They want to have something to rent. And so, although Somerset was a different part of this project, it was under the smart code zoning in T3 and T4. So you have on the east side of Exeter, you have the ability for someone to own a home, and that residential development is going really well. And on the west side, you have someone whose family's at a later stage of life who, really like me, I dream about getting rid of my lawnmower and my weed eater, but they're going to rent an apartment over there. And so we're grateful to be here, and we're grateful for all of the support that the city and the aldermen and the planners and the people that work at the city have given us. So thank you very much.
Mr. Ray, thank you. I will just conclude at Father's Day lunch a couple weeks ago. My own parents are looking at your project as well, 41 years in the same home, and they want to get rid of the lawnmower and the weed eater as well, and they're not ready for the villages, but that might be the transition that they move to. I know there's been a lot of conversation in the community about condos, apartments. You've always been designed as apartments. Is that accurate?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The project, as Cameron accurately stated, is 6 phases, and phase 4 and 5 have been designed and were approved by the Planning Commission as multifamily rental units we have a phase to come, and there may be condos at some point in time, and actually the design of the actual construction of phase 4 and 5 is such from a utility standpoint that at some point in time they could be converted to condos. But right now, I would say that 70 to 80% of the people that are moving there are selling a home, and so their reason for moving there is they just do not, they're at a place now they do not want to own a home anymore. And so we feel like that's a tremendous part of the appeal of this, is not having to keep up a home.
Again, thank you. Well, while the crowd is thinning out, I will allow that to occur. With the article that was in the Commercial Appeal that kind of highlighted Thornwood last week, there was an accompanying article maybe a day or two later, and I'd just like to maybe set the record clear and clear the air on a few things that were quoted in that June 20th article from the Commercial Appeal, mainly about development. And it really a couple of quotes I'd like to make sure that I read into the record from Alderman Massey. One of those, the quote unquote, yes.
Respond to what you're reading into the record.
Oh, most certainly. Quote unquote, the problem I have with Thornwood is the way that it was presented to the public, unquote. Another sentence. The mayor's administration, quote, the mayor's administration represented that these apartments were going to be condos where families would actually have ownership in the property, unquote. And I would just point out for the record that the application for this particular development occurred on 11/7 of 2014, before I became mayor, before I sat on the Planning Commission, and clearly it states that the use for the site would be apartments. You know, with that said, you know, I'm not sure, Alderman, you know, either you have not really researched the facts, or perhaps, you know, you're purposely trying to mislead the people. And I really want to understand why you would want to do that. And perhaps you might want to explain. You're quoting, in essence, quoting me in the newspaper and the media. I do not appreciate when I'm quoted or words are put into my mouth. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think that the quote was about the mayor's administration. So if you weren't the mayor at the time, I presume that that would have referred to the previous mayor. The context came from articles that were printed that actually said that the Thornwood development was going to be apartments, or condos rather. The article said that the Thornwood development was going to be condos. I'm sorry. Let me, you know, we didn't prepare for this tonight, so this has caught me a little bit off guard. I'm not feeling well. I've got a cold. But let me start over. So when Thornwood was first getting started, there were articles that were printed in the paper. There were discussions that were had with residents that led them to believe that the Thornwood development would be condos where people would have an actual ownership interest in those condos. At some point during the planning process, I don't disagree that they changed it so that it ended up being apartments. But the way the city presented it to the people and got them to be on board with it and not to object was to present it as condos. And you can dispute that, but the record itself shows that that's what
Where
happened.
is this record that you speak of?
It's a paper. It's a newspaper article, Mayor. Are you suggesting that it's wrong?
I don't.
Are you suggesting that you did not tell people that they were going to be condos, and that the developer never said and never planned and never represented that they were going to be condos?
I most certainly am. That's what I'm stating.
You're saying that no one ever represented that Thornwood was going to be condos. Are you saying that?
I never made any representation of anything that had to do with Thornwood.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you if anyone ever made the representation.
I don't speak for anyone.
Okay.
I don't speak for everyone either.
Well, you're making presumptions about what I said, and I think it's wrong. And I think you ambushed me, and I think it's wrong.
I am quoting what you said in the media in the Commercial Appeal, where you put words in my mouth without any.
Did I reference your name?
You said the mayor and the mayor's administration.
Were you the mayor at the time?
Well, I pointed out that at that particular time of this application, the answer is no. But when you make that blanket statement in 2018, it refers to me. Whether it's Mayor Goldsworthy or Mayor Salveggio, when you make it in 2018, it refers back to me, sir.
You know, Mayor, you were an alderman at the time. I don't remember you objecting. I don't remember you complaining that the apartment, that Thornwood was going to be apartments. The fact remains that you supported Thornwood being apartments. Regardless of whether or not they were initially represented as condos, you supported them being apartments, and that to me is the problem. And you were an alderman at the time, whether you were a mayor or not, and that's the problem you have to overcome, not what I said in an article.
Well, sir, do not put words in my mouth in the Commercial Appeal or any media source, and I stand by whatever I vote for. I read the quotes to you, sir. It's as simple as that. We can move on. Let's go ahead and move on in the agenda. We go to Alderman Liaison Reports, item 7. Alderman Barziza.
The Senior Commission met last week. We had a really good meeting. We had several guests. From Senior Helpers was Rachel Mayer, and from Foster Senior Living was Sharon Dickey. They made presentations of upcoming events. Lieutenant E.J. McGee came and discussed our light up Germantown street light plan and our monitor and to monitor the senior neighborhoods. We also discussed the spring seminar, the results of such, and also started deeper discussions into the Senior Expo. Mr. Buckmaster, who was just brought into the commission, was there to observe, and he starts as of, I guess, next month. That completes my report.
Thank you, Alderman. Vice Mayor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neighborhood Preservation Commission met last week to discuss plans for the Neighborhood Summit. That will be scheduled for October 23rd to be held there at the Great Hall. The West Tennessee Veterans Home is still accepting contributions to the West Tennessee Veterans Home Inc., their nonprofit organization. We have over 7,000 veterans in Germantown alone, and so I'd like to personally thank anyone who's contributed to that capital campaign that will be for the home that will be built in Arlington soon. If you would like to support veterans in this important way, please visit www.veterans-home.com, or you can send your check with your Germantown address in the memo field to P.O. Box 655, Cordova, Tennessee 38088. That would be made payable to the West Tennessee Veterans Home. And the initiative, I guess the tagline is, they've earned it, we should build it. And so that's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you for all your work in that effort as well. Alderman Massey.
I don't have a report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Owens.
Mayor, the Planning Commission met at the beginning of this month and approved a site plan for revisions to the parking lot at Harvest Church as well as the Grove at GPAC. I think you're probably going to mention the July 4th celebration, but if not, I'd ask Pam to come and give us some more information about that.
Did that conclude your report?
That does, yes.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report.
Thank you, and I would just reiterate that we are guaranteeing great weather for the July 4th. Pam Beasley said that herself. I quote her, "You're guaranteeing that we will not be rained out this year?" I see, I understand. On the record. And I do have just a quick comment from the mayor's office as well. I'd like to just congratulate our firefighter and EMT, Will Hogue, who won the Memphis Open this past weekend. That's 3 tournaments in a row that he's won. He is a long drive hitting expert. He's internationally ranked in the top 3. And here we are talking a lot of quotes. I'd like to quote our fire chief as he sent this report, this dispatch to us. He says, quote, "I guess you could say he's on fire." Thank you. So please pass along to Will our congratulations, and he has definitely made us very proud here in Germantown as well.
One thing, the distance, Chief, was it like 5 football fields in length is what he hit? Incredible.
My goodness, he's available for any scrambles, I take it. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, citizens to be heard. We have one citizen, one resident who has filled out a sheet this evening. if Brian Ulicki could come forward to either one of the podiums. When you come forward, make sure that the light is on green. There's a button you can push. If it's on green, you are live. If you could say your name and give your address and zip code for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is Brian Ulicki. I live at 9174 Greenbrier Cove, Germantown, Tennessee, 38139. I'm a corporate financial advisor by trade. I lead the budget process for an organization that is multiple times larger than the city. I grew up the son of a financial planner. My dad made a living helping people meet their financial goals. That said, financial responsibility has been part of my life since day one. I have 5-year-old twin boys, and I'm working hard to teach them the value of the dollar. So now, we may not all agree about everything in Germantown, but one thing we should agree about is fiscal responsibility. For years, our city has budgeted soundly and exercised sound financial policies. The city has an award-winning process. Yes, it's very conservative, but I think that's what we want out of our city government. I don't want a city that has budget shortfalls or raises taxes on an annual basis, basically forcing our city to live paycheck to paycheck. So when I saw 2 aldermen propose and vote for an 11-cent property tax cut without prior discussion with city administration or the finance committee, I became very concerned. I'm all for bringing ideas to the table, but this process has been going on for a long time, and to raise this issue 2 weeks before the final reading and just 20 days before the start of the fiscal year doesn't make sense. Make no mistake, those votes, both to propose the tax and change the tax, were cast without understanding the impact of those decisions. This budget process has been going on for months. There's been plenty of time for this to be reviewed and vetted, and for something like this to come up, which by my calculations, and I don't know if this is right or not, but my estimate's $1.9 million cut to the city budget. So where's that going to come from? You want to see the character of our city change? Well, no new development will change this city faster or more impactfully than poor fiscal management. So I support what you all are doing in the budget process as it exists, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. That concludes citizens to be heard for this evening. Now we'll take a quick recess, and now we will meet as a beer board. So now I call to open up a beer board here in the city of Germantown for a public hearing and beer permit for on-premise consumption for Memphis Bar Ties. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. The city has received a request from Mr. Lowell Henty and Christopher Boyd for a permit to sell beer for on-premise consumption at Memphis Bar Ties located at 7605 West Farmington Suite 2. That is the former Grimaldi's building. Bar Ties is entered into a lease agreement with Saddle Creek Trademark Properties for the lease of this building. Essentially what they would like to do under this beer permit application is to sell beer like a pop-up type beer garden from Fridays to Sundays over the next several months. The letter that's attached from Mr. Henty gives more detail in terms of the time of the operation and the proposed days. They are in compliance with the city's ordinance in terms of the necessary background checks that were conducted on these 2 individuals. They're also in compliance with the city's ordinance in terms of the location of this event. There'll be food trucks, there'll be games for families and children, and again, they're going to be occupying the former Grimaldi site. Based on the application and the city's beer ordinance itself, the administration recommends approval. We have representatives from Memphis Bar Ties here this evening if the board has any questions of them.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. And if you, before making a presentation, if you're, or 2 people here, or just yourself, if you want to have your partner come forward as well. First of all, is there a motion to approve the request of Lowell Henty and Christopher Boyd for a permit to sell beer for on-premise consumption at Memphis Bar Ties located at 7605 West Farmington Suite 2? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. At this time, I will open a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak to this particular item on the agenda? We have a public hearing. It's open to the public to come forward to speak on this item. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak on this particular item? Third and final call. See no one come forward. That concludes the public hearing. If you'd like to make a short, would you like to make a presentation or just field questions? Or
I'll field questions. He put it more eloquently than I ever could.
So okay, very well. Are there questions for staff or the applicants? Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. Will you have a liquor by the drink license during that period of time?
Well, we have no intention on serving liquor or
just
wine.
Beer only?
Just beer only.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for this applicant or staff? Alderman Owens.
Yeah, just out of my curiosity, can you walk me through, I mean, there's patio seating, I guess, there at Grimaldi's, and so would you envision out on the patio, also inside, both inside and outside? There's going to be music set up where? Just kind of walk me through that.
Absolutely, that's accurate. We look on intending on occupying the building and the patio itself, as well as the adjacent parking lot to the Grimaldi's building. That's approximately 30 spaces, and we like to clearly mark off that area so that food trucks can be parked in there and patrons can play those games safely and drink and eat, whether it is inside in the air conditioning or outside at a table.
And it's follow-up question, if I may.
Sure.
So it's 3 days?
Looking to host it on the weekends for the next few months,
Okay,
Friday,
so
Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay. Just on weekends then?
Yes.
Great. I love it. Looks exciting, and I think it's something new that we haven't experienced in Germantown, and hopefully we can drive some folks to that center. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions for this applicant or for staff? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the questions that was raised during executive session was regarding sales tax retrieval. You will be charging sales tax?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Very good, and thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? There has been a motion and a second. Please let the record show that Alderman Barzizza left the dais. Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
You can call the roll for Alderman Barzizza. He's stepping forward.
Yes.
And let the record show that he has returned as well. Congratulations. We're very excited. Anytime we can put somewhat of an empty bay in one of our major centers, and that is a lifestyle center at Saddle Creek, we're very excited, so we wish you the best.
Thank you. I'm excited as well and appreciate y'all's support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Please, no clapping when you're happy. Only when you're not happy. There we go. That concludes our public hearing and for the beer board. So we are now adjourned as a beer board, and we reconvene as a board of mayor and aldermen. That brings us to item number 10 on the agenda, ordinance 2018-1, ordinance to adopt FY 2019 budget, third and final reading. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. I'm going to let the budget team come forward and get situated. We also have with us from the school district, Mr. Kevin Jones, Finance Director. Mayor, I will make a rather brief presentation, not near as long as what I did during the second reading and public hearing, but to highlight where we are here this evening at third and final reading. Mayor and Board, I'm pleased to provide to you tonight on third reading the FY19 annual operating budget and capital improvements plan for the city of Germantown. These spending plans reflect our commitment to provide quality service and amenities to our residents, addressing the educational needs of the community while preserving, the organization's long-term financial viability. As we manage the resources entrusted to us by our residents, we see positive signs of improvement over the 5-year financial forecast, particularly in the area of state sales tax and local sales tax. And as we mentioned last time, we appreciate and we acknowledge the increase in both of these areas, but these are considered elastic taxes, and they can ebb and flow with the economy. In addition to that, and although the cost of delivering services has also grown, we will continue to look for ways to build operating efficiencies through our work with TNCP and the Baldrige program from within. The proposed budget before you continues to provide core services and maintains the quality of services that our residents have come to expect. This balanced and strategic approach results in a spending plan that adapts to the changing needs of our community without compromising our financial future. Setting long-term priorities for the city is one of the most important responsibilities for Germantown elected officials, and in 2016, you reaffirmed this commitment by adopting the Germantown Forward 2030 plan. This policy document sets the direction for our organization, creates alignment between policy and implementation, and acts as a touchstone for city staff and this body for making financial and operational decisions regarding community expectations. In addition, the city is guided by a set of financial policies, so when you adopt the budget, you're also adopting the financial policies contained within that document that provide guidance and policy direction for our budget process, debt management, capital spending, and the health of our fund balance and our reserves. Over the past several months, staff has worked closely and extensively with the city's Financial Advisory Commission based upon the budget calendar that this body approved back in January. The Financial Advisory Commission reviewed and discussed each of the city governmental funds, including the capital, enterprise, special revenues, and the general fund. After each presentation, a vote was taken to move forward the budget for approval, eventually by the board, mayor, and aldermen. During the public hearing, this past meeting on June 11th, the chairman of the FAC presented an overview of their work and a recommendation to this body to approve the FY19 budget. In addition to the work of the Financial Advisory Commission, staff has provided the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with information briefings and work sessions regarding significant policy issues regarding the capital improvements plan, the budget and capital needs for Germantown Municipal School District. Regarding GMSD, the administration recommended a CIP funding option to address the security needs of the schools and the HVAC/boiler issues at Riverdale Elementary. We discussed that with the board at the second reading, and that has now been incorporated into the CIP for funding in FY19, and also we've incorporated it into the resolution on the CIP. The 5-year resolution that will be coming forward to the board later this evening. The recommended budget includes appropriate funding to address these demands and service areas through a thoughtful and deliberate manner without disrupting existing services or placing additional strain on the city's general fund. Each year, as part of the city's budget process, department heads engage with their employees to discuss trends, options, and opportunities for addressing citizen needs and the customers that they deal with on a day-to-day basis in their department. The department heads align the business plan with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen's policy agenda and the long-range strategic plan and submit associated budget requests to achieve these desired performance outcomes for each one of their departments. The budget before you the budget before you and request are responsible, and the overall general fund, when you back off the new debt service payments we have for the new school and the road, only increased by 2.7% over the budget for the current fiscal year. This despite the increase in many of the benefit, OPEB, and pension issues before us, and despite the addition of significant infrastructure replacement projects in FY19. The budget staff and team is here before you this evening, and they're prepared to answer any questions that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen may have tonight regarding their areas of operations. Also, the department heads are here, too, to go into more detail if the board has any specific questions about any of the departmental expenditures. In summary, Mayor and Board, the proposed budget for FY19 totals $177,308,516. The general fund operating budget totals $54,720,709 and represents a 2.7% over the approved and current FY18 budget. The enterprise funds, including utilities, GAC, stormwater, the Great Hall, and sanitation, total $19,796,164. The special revenue funds total $71,520,685, of which the Germantown Municipal School District is the largest component of our special revenue funds at almost $65 million. The annual city's capital improvement program for FY19 totals $31,224,958 and does include those changes that I mentioned earlier regarding the security systems and the boilers. Though not in addition to the CIP, it's more taking the $1.5 million we had originally identified and dividing that between security and the boiler system. During the work session on May 9th, Mayor Palazzolo gave direction to drop the property tax rate by 2 cents to reflect the recapture rate approved by the State Comptroller's Office. That has been incorporated into the budget during all of the readings on the document. The motion before you this evening is to approve the budget on third and final reading. I'm available for any questions that you may have, as well as members of the budget team and the department heads gathered here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve on third and final reading ordinance 2018-1 establishing the FY19 proposed budget?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Owens.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. I'll be brief. I think the budget that the administration has presented to us is a sound one. It places priority in the areas that our constituents value most, and that is education and public safety. Our capital expenditures in these areas effectively put our money where our mouth is, and I think that all of us on the board have stated we value education and place a top priority on public safety. Both of these will be helped with this budget. Just a few highlights. You may have mentioned some of these, Patrick, so forgive me for repeating you, but capital projects such as the Riverdale School Boiler System and the Houston High School Arts and Education Building will be funded. The debt service for our new elementary school and the Riverdale School expansion are addressed in this budget, as well as future planning for Houston Middle School. All of these are addressed in this budget in the future 5-year planning model. Our police, fire, and EMT investments help to ensure the safety and security of our residents, their homes, and our businesses. Some of these investments include 3 new police officers, 11 new vehicles for the police, a fire engine replacement, and the preliminary design for the fire station number 3, redesign of fire station number 3. Finally, as liaison of the Parks and Recreation Commission, I'm appreciative of the money that we've set aside to support our newly adopted master plan. This master plan and the corresponding expenditures in the budget and the 5-year plan will help ensure Germantown residents will have excellent parks both now and in the future. I appreciate all the hard work done by our budget and finance team, our Financial Advisory Commission, administration, and department heads in getting us to a fiscally responsible budget that supports the services our residents care so much about and still allows for a small reduction to our taxpayers.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions? Alderman Massey?
Just comments, Mayor. Before I read my comments, I have a 2-year-old at home, and he has passed on a bug to me. I'm really pretty under the weather tonight, so please bear with me as I try to read through this. I want the people of Germantown to know that I love Germantown. Sometimes that means opposing bad government decisions. I contend the budget was not produced in the best interest of the vast majority of Germantown residents. The public puts their trust in the aldermen to act in the public's best interest, and I think we have a duty to oppose the mayor's budget. A legitimate analysis of the city's financial management confirms chronic problems with financial forecasting, planning, and estimating revenues over the past several years. As a consequence, the current proposed tax rate has been unnecessarily inflated and presents an undue burden on our taxpayers. Unfortunately, I believe the mayor's office withheld information that should have been used in deliberations by both the BMA and Financial Advisory Commission. At almost this exact same time last year, the mayor agreed to produce information relevant to school funding, but a year later, the mayor has not produced the information. More recently, the mayor has refused to produce the cost-benefit analysis for the water tower and water lines intended to service the new apartments near Forest Hill and Winchester Road. The public has concerns that our city commissions and BMA are being used as a vehicle through which developers and City Hall propagandize the public to support pet projects and excuse passing on unnecessary tax and fee increases to citizens. The city is gouging ordinary families like my own and placing the interest of developers over existing Germantown families. When we compare estimated revenues to actual revenues, the city has been off by $9.3 million for FY14 through FY17. And this is only 3 months until close of fiscal year and projected when the bulk of the revenues from property taxes is already known. How can the board approve this budget when the mayor's office continues to provide unreliable estimates? It is clear that there are no meaningful checks and balances in city government as it exists today. At the last budget hearing, the chairman of the Financial Advisory Commission answered questions that confirmed the members simply accepted the recommendations from the mayor's office with little to no oversight. Yet the mayor included a letter implying the Financial Advisory Commission provides legitimate oversight of the budget process. Based on the mayor's letter and comments from the chairman and alderman liaison to the Financial Advisory Commission, the mayor never even gave the members an opportunity to publicly deliberate on the $1.95 tax rate. The reality is the commission members cannot compel the mayor to provide them with more details. And in most cases, commission members don't want to be alienated and labeled a troublemaker by the establishment for requesting more information from the mayor's administration. I'm an elected official, and I can't even get budget information that I have requested in order to fulfill my responsibility as an alderman. The public record shows how city officials have attempted to obstruct efforts by myself and Alderman Barziza to obtain additional details about the budget and other matters in city government. Recently, as the last BMA meeting, a member of the mayor's staff called me reckless for simply making a motion to start the discussion to determine whether or not we could provide tax relief to our citizens in the form of an 11-cent tax reduction. If City Hall truly cared about the public and transparency, the mayor's staff would have prepared options with different tax rates that would have allowed the legislative body to determine which expenses could be cut to provide the taxpayers with some relief. Instead, staff used government resources to produce information that only supported the $1.95 tax rate that resulted from a 21-cent tax increase last year. The mayor has not provided aldermen with sufficient information to make informed decisions and recommendations about the budget or tax increase. The mayor only provides commission members and aldermen with the information that supports City Hall's agenda, which is not always aligned with the public interest. We need to have a serious gut check about priorities in the budget. Should we be funding $3.4 million to improve future smart growth developments when so many drainage problems exist in our residential neighborhoods? Should we be funding $2.5 million for street beautification and outdoor entertainment venues when our schools need more money for security upgrades, ADA upgrades, and a new field house? I would remind my colleagues that city officials accepted the obligation for school maintenance and growth before a school board could even vote. So I think the city should fulfill our obligation to cover those expenses once and for all. Each alderman has the opportunity tonight to hold the mayor's administration accountable for the lack of transparency in the budget. And I believe it is in the public's interest for each alderman to vote no. Now, how much time do I have, Mayor?
5 minutes.
What did you say, Alderman Yonda?
Too much.
So I appreciate you listening to my comments, and now I'd like to propose a few motions to amend the budget. I move to remove the funding for the $2 million that is budgeted for the upgrade of the sewer system for smart growth developments in the Western Gateway.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Well, I guess I should explain the motion. I'm sorry. This $2 million is nothing more than the administration's pathway for apartments in the city despite the moratorium. I mean, a vote for this is a vote for apartments in the Western Gateway. You know, the city gouged residents with inflated utility rates to build up the reserve, and the money should be used to make improvements for existing residents rather than speculative smart growth developments. Form of the motion, I move to remove the funding, the $2 million funding that is budgeted for the upgrade of the sewer system for smart growth developments in the Western Gateway.
Do you have that, Clerk? Is there a second? For failure of a second, the motion does not carry. Continue. You have the floor, sir.
Also, I'd like to move to remove the $243,000 in funding for the water tower in Forest Hill Heights. And if necessary, I'll make a separate motion to remove the $1,140,000 funding for the annexation of the annexation area water main. As with the $2 million requested for the sewer system, the city is taking advantage of existing residents by charging them excessive utility rates to create huge reserves, which are then used to improve smart growth developments.
Can you restate your motion, please?
I move to remove the $243,000 in funding for the water tower in Forest Hill Heights, and I'll make the second one as a separate motion if it simplifies things.
Do you have that, Clerk, on the first motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
No.
Alderman Yonda?
No.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
No.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Motion fails. You have the floor, sir.
The second motion is to remove the $1,140,000 funding for the annexation area water main. You know, Mayor, we as a board requested information on a cost-benefit analysis of both the water tower and that annexation. You never provided that to us. We can't make an educated decision about this without having that information. And the entire board, I believe, was in agreement that we needed that cost-benefit analysis.
Well, in response to that, the budget is set. Each item is appropriated during the year, and then that's the time where the amount of due diligence in the studies and the reports, the board is allowed to then interact and then also ask questions and form a decision at that time. This is setting the budget
Mayor,
priority.
If you withhold the information from us, we can't get it. You control the information.
The studies have not been done yet.
Well, they should have been done. That's part of the point. But any of the information that was available should have been turned over.
Part of this is the budgetary process to get us from point A to point B. That's somewhat governing 101. You're losing your time on the floor, so you've made that in the form of a motion. Is there a second? With no second, the motion fails. With the lack of a second, you have the floor. You have about a minute left, sir.
I would like to mention, though, in regards to that.
Your colleague has the floor right now.
Maybe. So, third motion, I'd like to remove the $500,000 for streetscape. And after speaking with my friend Suzanne Jones, I asked the board to reallocate the $500,000 for the Houston Fieldhouse project, which I believe should leave them with only $100,000 of their goal.
Second.
Clerk, do you have that? Could you restate your motion, just the motion portion, sir?
I move to remove the $500,000 for streetscape and ask the board to reallocate the $500,000 for the Houston Fieldhouse project.
That has been properly seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
No.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
No.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
No.
Motion fails. That concludes your time on the floor. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Alderman Yonda.
I've actually forgotten what the
Turn on your microphone, please.
original motion was.
This is to adopt the budget, sir.
Okay. I'm not sure where my alderman to my right is from and who he's an alderman for, but I have totally different people communicating with me than he does. And it's a constant political agenda at these meetings. We're the legislative branch. We're supposed to make the decisions. Thank God it's majority rules in this case. But I just over and over and over again with the same thing, and it's incorrect, the majority of it, and I'm tired of it. I think that it needs to be confronted each and every time, and I plan to do so from now on. Thank you.
The floor is open. My Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I do have a few comments that I think do bear repeating. They were mentioned at the second reading, which was our public hearing, but the passing of our budget is one of the most important things that we do as an alderman. Each one of us has our own process to ensure that we're exercising due diligence to ask those important questions. Many of us began in January with staff and department heads related to what those needs are for our city. We've asked them to look for ways to continue the hard work of leaving no stone unturned and lessening the tax burden on our citizens, but in a way that will still allow us to meet the needs of our citizens in the manner they expect. For me, I focused on the safety of our community with police, fire, and our ambulance, our infrastructure needs with public works, our compensation and benefits package with human resources, where we strive to recruit good employees who become great employees. You saw many of them here this evening with our Play Like a Champion class. We give those employees a chance to develop within their area of expertise, and we compensate them equitably in both pay and benefits. I focused on our quality of life interest with Parks and Recreation, our library, Performing Arts Center, Athletic Center. And by meeting with 4 of our 5 Board of education members as well as the superintendent, I look towards our schools that are here in our community where we work day in and day out to provide exceptional educational opportunities for those students. I want to thank our budget and performance team, our staff, administration, for the thoughtful and deliberate work that went into the building of this budget, and I will be voting in affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments or questions? Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. As almost a lifelong resident of Germantown, I certainly want the best education for the children of our community, and by no means on tonight's third reading of the 2019 budget should it be construed that I'm not for the schools. I definitely want good education for the children in our schools. At our joint work session a few weeks ago, I recommended just before we adjourned that I was very concerned about school safety, and I was very appreciative that the school, GMSD, decided to take $500,000 of the $1.5 million that was allocated to the boilers. That $500,000 go into the study, as well as cameras and hopefully a security officer to teach the children, the administration, and all the teachers what to look for in case of an emergency. I was very, very pleased with that, and I love this school system. Believe me, I've visited with each of the PTO presidents over the last several months to see what their needs are, and I really appreciated their time. I've donated to GMSD in several ways in the foundation, as well as special education classrooms. I feel, having had two sons in special needs classrooms, that it's very important that the tools are there for those children, and particularly the teachers and the staff in those classrooms to properly teach. And each and every child is as different as night and day, believe me. I have also, out of nowhere, when I heard at a school board meeting a couple of years ago, when the school board couldn't buy tires for the Houston High School band, I opened up my checkbook and wrote the check and bought the tires. And then just recently, I've committed I made a significant commitment, a pledge to the Houston High School field house. So I'm all behind the schools. Though I am behind the schools, and I want people to understand, I will be voting no. There are other reasons, and I truly feel that our spending is out of control. I'm looked at some numbers in comparison. Brentwood, Tennessee, is just about the same population. Their cost of government is 30% less than ours. 30%. That's pretty significant. And this is based on 2015, an average of 2015, 2016 data. That's the best I could get. So having said that, again, I will be voting no. And it's really, in so many areas, y'all have done a wonderful job in putting together this budget. But I'm concerned about spending. I'm concerned about, as Alderman Massey said, the revenues aspect are not properly forecasted, in my opinion. And when we miss it by such a large margin, it's concerning me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor.
I do have a question regarding the estimated revenues. Mr. Lawton, can you speak to the reliance on that sales tax revenue and how we thoughtfully and deliberately put that in a category and make sure that we budget very fiscally responsibly?
Yes, Vice Mayor. And not only the sales tax revenue, but also the property tax from the commercial and the residential. We take a long-term view over our 5-year planning period, and we know the developments that are in line. We know what's in the pipeline, what could be coming. But even with that, we project very conservatively on what that property tax will generate during that 5-year period without impacting the tax rate that we want to hold on to. Now it looks like for another 6 years. Regarding sales tax, we're very cautious about how we operate with the sales tax. I mentioned earlier in my comments, it is considered an elastic tax. You know, I don't know if you saw what the stock market did today, but there's, you know, the economy could shift and move at any point in time. And so although we appreciate right now at this point in time what's happening with our sales tax, we budget very conservatively. About a 2% increase in sales tax every year is what we look at from the local option, also from the state sales portion as well. So we don't overcommit. In addition to that, the budget and performance staff is monitoring on a monthly basis that forecast during the fiscal year. And if any point in time we see that it's not coming in per budget, and the board gets those reports, we will ratchet back if necessary. We will look at purchases that may not need to be made during the fiscal year. If, say, by the middle of 6 months into the fiscal year that we're seeing difficulties on the horizon, then we can pull back in certain areas because we understand the budget, we monitor the budget, and we're very, very conservative with our cost estimates. If you look at the revenue growth in the revenue line item in the general fund summary, you will see very little growth. Property tax, yes, is increasing, but not at an exorbitant rate, because when it comes in, it's great, but we'd rather prepare and have conservative estimates on our forecast and try to control expenditures where we can. Those two things together is what's created the fund balance that we have today, which allows us to pay for many capital projects and also allows us to maintain the bond rating.
Follow up, Mayor?
Sure.
So you presented why we do it. Can you explain what that worst case scenario is if we didn't do it that way?
Well, we'd just be kidding ourselves for one thing. I mean, we're $1 million over in FY18 in sales tax. It appears that trend is going to continue into FY19. We feel certain about that because of the new shopping that's coming online. But we're also not tied to that. We understand what that sales tax represents. And if we overestimated, we would be in serious difficulty if there was a downturn. We'd be looking at, first, we'd be looking at IRP projects. Second, we'd be looking at much needed capital project in the city. The same thing happened at the start of the Great Recession. We were watching this. We could see the trends in 2007 and 2008 that were leading up to the recession. And we dialed back very quickly in a number of areas. We had emergency meetings with staff to say, we might not make budget this year because of what's happening. It's not that we overcommitted in our revenue estimates, but things changed in the economy.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Massey?
I actually have another motion to make, Mayor. I ran out of time earlier. You know, I think part of the conflict that exists on the board is because we genuinely have a disagreement over what is right and what is wrong. There's certain things I think that should be obviously right or wrong, and even on those things we don't seem to agree. It's strange. But I think the time has come for us to have someone outside the city review some of the things that have taken place in our city government. I am going to move to have $50,000 for the reimbursement of legal expenses likely to be incurred by an alderman as an incident to holding office. I intend to ask outside counsel to review the legality of certain actions taken by the current mayor and/or city officials from 2005 to present. Many of my requests for legal assistance from the city attorney have been met with resistance, and the mayor even issued a memo requiring aldermen to submit all legal inquiries through the mayor, which presents a conflict under the circumstances. I think we need someone from the outside to give us an independent review, an independent opinion, to take each of us out of the middle of some of these issues and to finally put them to rest.
Can you restate your motion, please?
I move to have $50,000 in the budget for the reimbursement of legal expenses likely to be incurred by an alderman as an incident to holding office.
Do you have that, clerk? It's been properly motioned. Is there a second?
I don't understand the motion. Would you give us a little more detail?
The motion is simply asking the board to budget money that can be used to retain outside counsel who can review a number of issues that have taken place in the city. I believe there is a conflict in the board using council, using the city's council. I think the board needs our own council, and I think we need to budget that money so that we can talk to council and address some of our legal needs that either are not being addressed by our city attorney or should not be addressed by our city attorney due to potential conflicts. I believe there's a policy in city government where aldermen can be reimbursed for certain expenses. I am just wanting to make it known to the board that I intend to seek advice from outside counsel and intend to request that that be reimbursed. And the estimate is that it's probably going to cost around $50,000.
It's been motioned. Is there a second? Motion fails with the lack of a second. We return to the main motion, the approval of the budget. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
This is in regards to the budget. No.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Absolutely.
Budget carries and moves forward and is approved and adopted. We move to item 11 on the agenda, Ordinance 2018-2, Year-End Budget Adjustments, third and final reading. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of the year, there are a number of budget adjustments that are made to the city's budget to align it with the fiscal year 18 budget, particularly as we enter the audit season. We have been presenting these budget adjustments to the board as they have come forward during a three-reading process. You have approved a number of these up to budget adjustment number 18-113, so I will begin there and give just a brief overview of what's happening with that budget adjustment and why it's necessary. So budget adjustment number 18-13 is to provide funding for the new flooring and carpeting in the storytime room. This was not an item that was budgeted in this year's budget. However, we did have funds available, and that project moved forward, and so we need to do a budget adjustment recognizing that expenditure. Budget adjustment number 18-14, the board may recall that several years ago in 2011, Shelby County applied for a resiliency grant to protect a number of the drainage laterals throughout Shelby County. This was under the Community Development Block Grant Program. The city of Germantown, because of a number of the characteristics associated with the CDBG program, we initially were not eligible for this program. However, because there were funds available and left over, we did receive funding from the CDBG program and move forward with a consulting contract for some drainage work on 3 of the Wolf River laterals. This money will be presented to the city on a 100% reimbursable basis, but we also need to recognize that we are going to be spending city dollars moving forward as we receive those block grant monies. Budget adjustment number 18-116 is an increase to the legal fees associated with the administration's budget. The current budget has just under $7,000 left in that line item. The proposed budget adjustment is an amount of $50,000 to take care of the remainder of what we see as the legal needs for FY18. That's primarily because of the number of FOI requests that we've responded to that takes legal time and expenditures. It also has to do with several of the pilot program applications that the city attorney's office reviews regarding Mid-America Apartments, Campbell's, and ThyssenKrupp. We will be reimbursed for those, even though the expense is coming out of the legal line item in administration. We will be expensed for all of those bills associated with those 3 pilot projects. Item number 18, budget adjustment number 18-119, is the taking funding out of the Recreation Fund in the amount of $41,750 so we can do both of the tennis courts at C.O. Franklin Park and at Municipal Park. That will be budgeted, that will be budget item, that will be agenda item number 21J on your agenda this evening, assuming the board moves forward with resurfacing both of those tennis courts. That will provide the funding in FY18 to complete that work, and then there'll be budget dollars in FY19 as well. Budget adjustment number 18-120, the fire department purchased a vehicle, replacement vehicle in the fire department. What was not included was what's called a Husky rear liner for the back of that truck in the amount of $790, and we'll be requesting a budget adjustment to address that. Budget number adjustment 18-121. This is concerning the dimming rack system, the dimmer system at the Great Hall. When this was presented to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for approval of the dimming system, it is an FY18 approved project. When we presented it to the board back on November 13th, 2017, we did take an alternate for that project to overall include and improve only the lighting system and the lighting controls. We mentioned to the board at that time, with your approval that evening, that we would be bringing that back to you as a budget adjustment at the end of the year, taking that funding out of retained earnings. Budget adjustment number 18-122 is the budget adjustment for the Germantown Athletic Club. Again, this item was brought to the board in November 13, 2017. The project was over budget. We did not have enough in the fund to complete the boiler project. We mentioned to the board, and the board approved this when they approved the expenditure of the funds to come back at the end of the year and do a budget adjustment in the amount of $18,953. Budget adjustment number 18-123 is providing funding for the attorney fees associated with acquiring the Jock Schuler property. The board may recall this. This is a property that's located next to the park at Germantown Station Park. We acquired that property. However, the closing did not occur until FY18, and an additional expenditure in the amount of $1,900 was made then. The larger portion of budget adjustment number 18-123 is also to provide the funding for the additional right-of-way necessary with Wolf River Boulevard. We explained to the board as we were bringing these purchases forward for the right-of-way that there may not be sufficient funds awarded to us by the state to complete all the right-of-way acquisitions. The state has agreed to provide that funding. However, as we're doing with this entire project, we are cash flowing that project. Funding needs to come out of the fund balance for this capital project, and then we will be reimbursed by the state for that amount. Budget adjustment number 18-124. This is related to the other component project of the boiler system. We did the Germantown Athletic Club. At that time, we also did the Performing Arts Center. That was approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on November 13th. There were not sufficient revenues to complete the project, so we're requesting a budget adjustment, just over $9,000 to do that. Again, at the time, you all approved the construction for the boiler system for both the Athletic Club and GPAC. That budget amendment was highlighted before you, and now we are bringing it back to you at the end of the fiscal year. Budget adjustment number 18-125 is to realign the budget associated with the retirement cash balance plan. As the board knows, there are two pension plans with the city. The one plan was frozen in July 2013. That is the defined benefit plan. And then we created a cash balance plan. We've had more individuals who have left the city during that period of time under the cash balance plan. And with that, because they are contributing 5% to the plan, they can pull their funding, their contributions out if they want from the cash balance plan. And we had more folks do that than we had anticipated. And so there is a shortfall in terms of retirement reimbursements in the amount of $33,715. That funding is coming from the cash balance plan and not from the general fund. Very similar to that in budget adjustment number 18-126. This is the defined contribution plan. We are recommending that we make a budget adjustment in the amount of $132,000 and pull additional funding out of the retirement plan itself to pay for the retirement for our retirees under that plan. Much like the cash balance plan, we had more folks retire this year under that plan than what we had anticipated. Budget adjustment number 18-127. Simply, the first part of that is an error on our part. We did not budget enough in terms of salaries and exempt salaries in the sewer budget that's associated with the utility fund, and so therefore we are recommending that we pull from retained earnings within the sewer fund funding to correct that error that happened at the beginning of the fiscal year, which would also include the pilot program as well. And we're just about done here. Budget adjustment number 18-128 is to realign the budget for ambulance service overtime. That is coming out of the fund balance for that particular fund. We are making more runs and bringing in more folks than we'd anticipated at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so we are pulling additional $24,761 out of the ambulance fund balance to cover that. Just a couple more here. Budget adjustment number 18-129 is to provide additional funding for our signal maintenance fund. It's a contract we have with DeSoto Electric. Correct, Tim? I'm sorry, Memphis Signal Maintenance, to take care of our signals when we have storms and the signals go out during the year. We need a budget adjustment to make that particular area whole. We're also looking at covering overtime charges associated with the use of SROs for a number of different programs. Budget adjustment number 18-130 is to pay not pay, we've already paid them, but is to identify the costs associated with the debt issuance costs associated with the $34 million bond issue for the roadway on Forest Hill and for the school itself. That $24 million and the $5 million we did not identify at that time in fiscal year 18 the closing costs necessary with that. However, that will be coming out of debt proceeds and not out of the city's fund balance or reserves. And finally, the workers' comp. When we do our workers' comp budget for all of the departments at the beginning of the fiscal year, it's our best guess estimate of what's going to happen in terms of those type of claims. And so we are only pulling $5,693 out of the general fund to cover the additional need for workers' compensation claims. Everything else that you see in this budget adjustment on 18-131 is coming from different departments or from different line items within those departments. Mayor, that represents the budget adjustments, and with your approval this evening, we will have the FY18 budget aligned with where it should be in preparation for the audit to begin in July.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-2 for year-end budget adjustments on third and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you pull up what was in the budget in regards to 116? How much was attributed to legal in the budget? I don't have my book.
I can tell you that, Alderman Barzizza, the budget for legal was $450,000 is what we had budgeted in the legal line item. That covers the retainer for the city attorney in the amount of $264,000. But also with that, we had those additional expenses, related to FOI request, and also, as I mentioned, the pilot request as well. When we work with corporations approving a pilot, city attorney's office, we absorb those fees on the front end. However, once we close and once there's a lease in place between the applicant and the Industrial Development Board, the city will prepare a letter to those entities, whether it's ThyssenKrupp, Mid-America, Campbell's, and we will be reimbursed for that amount. Unfortunately, it does not go back into the administration's line item for legal expenses. So they are a hit to the legal fees in administration.
Could I request a breakdown of all legal fees and be presented to the members of the BMA?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Of detail and as to who, with Mr. Harris and on down the line, even as far as the FOIAs.
I'll give you a breakdown by when we receive the invoices, what's going to what.
As detailed as possible, if you would, please. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Patrick, that's information that I've requested in the past that I haven't been provided, so I agree with Alderman Barzizza, and I would like it to be as detailed as possible. And one thing I asked is that we start asking these attorneys to provide us a breakdown of their hourly billing, and I never received that either. So, I think for our purposes, maybe we go back 3 years. We don't just stop with the current year, because I missed last year because it was just never provided to me. So maybe go back 3 years while you're pulling this information up, and I would really appreciate that.
Any other questions for staff?
Do we have an agreement to do that, Mayor?
Sure. Any other questions for staff? Been motioned and properly seconded. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Motion carries. Final year adjustments are concluded. Brings us to item number 12 on the agenda, ordinance number 2018-3, real and personalty property taxes. Mr. Lawton? Mr. Gabb.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Board Mayor and Alderman, you're being asked to approve on third and final reading the real and personalty property tax rate of $1.95 for the fiscal year of 2019, which would support the adoption of the city's FY19 budget. The property tax rate of $1.95 supports the City of Germantown's public policy, which states that the adoption of the budget remains by far one of the most significant actions taken by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen each year. It authorizes the allocation of resources and establishes directions for programs and services for the coming year and during the 5-year planning process. This planning process sets the City of Germantown above most municipalities in planning for the fiscal stability of the future. It is one of the many reasons the city is rated a AAA by the Standard & Poor's and Moody's rating agencies. The tax rate of $1.95 addresses the needs of the community in accordance with the resources available, establishes policies and sound administrative practices. The tax rate builds upon prior budgets, city objectives, city's business plan, citizens' feedback, and the Germantown Forward 2030 plan. A little background as well may be helpful and useful. The Shelby County assessor reappraised the property in Shelby County as required by the state statute every 4 years and submitted to the City of Germantown their tax rolls on April the 20th of 2017 for the calendar year 2017 or fiscal year 2018, which contained the reappraisal of property. The city calculates a state certified tax rate or a rollback rate that produced a tax neutral effect as required by the Tennessee law. But upon calculating the rollback, the city, based upon history, calculated an estimated appeals allowance. This was submitted to the Shelby County Assessor for approval and to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and it was then submitted and accepted by the Tennessee State Board of Equalization. The city had until March 31st of the following year to use the allowance. Our new certified tax rate would be calculated by the State Board of Equalization. The State Board of Equalization received from the Shelby County Assessor a fiscal impact summary which showed that 44.34% of the allowance was used. The fiscal impact summary was dated April 5th, submitted to the State Board of Equalization by the Shelby County Board of Appeals. The State Board of Equalization on April the 26th submitted to the City of Germantown and the Shelby County Assessor its recalculation of the recapture rate to be $1.95. This provides for the true checks and balances along with the transparency for local municipal governments by the State Board of Equalization. If a local government decides to keep the additional appeals allowance, the local government would have a tax increase and must publish to the public in a separate notice of its intent to increase the tax rate. The recapture rate is less than the current tax rate of $1.97 by 2 pennies. Therefore, you're being asked to adopt ordinance number 2018-3, establishing a new certified tax rate of $1.95 on third and final reading. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gabb. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 2018-3, establishing the certified tax rate at $1.95 on third and final reading?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Massey.
So Earlier in the budget discussion, Mr. Lawton, I think, implied that our sales tax kind of corresponds with the stock market, but I'm not sure that's exactly right. It's been a while since I've studied some of these things. But I think that it also corresponds with the CPI and development in the city. I have comments, again, that I'm going to read into the record, but, you know, I just have a real hard time with what we're doing to our taxpayers, because when I look at this budget, I see a profit. And, you know, as government, we're not supposed to make a profit.
Point of a clarification.
Yes, Vice Mayor?
Just a question. What is CPI?
Consumer Price Index.
Thank you.
Continue, please.
The public has placed us in a position of trust, and we must act in the public's interest. To be generous, I contend the support for the current proposed tax rate is flawed and not even consistent with prior practices of the city. Last time I made a motion for an 11-cent tax reduction. This time I'm not going to make a motion. I don't think I can get the support of the majority, but I do recommend reducing the tax rate by 10 cents to $1.85. Mr. Lawton circulated a memorandum dated June 22, 2018, seeking to discourage any proposed tax reduction. Mr. Lawton's memo makes claims that are incomplete or simply wrong. Mr. Lawton's memo fails to account for the city's prior practices under the direction of Mr. Lawton himself. As I said during the budget discussion, any legitimate analysis of the city's financial management confirms chronic problems over the last several years with the financial forecasting, planning, and estimating revenues. As a consequence, the current proposed tax rate has been artificially inflated and results in an unnecessary burden on our taxpayers. Mr. Lawton's June 22, 2018 memorandum stated the state requires a balanced budget for the fiscal year. Mr. Lawton claimed we need to apply that concept to future projections. I contend this position is wrong. We forecast for future years. Forecasting is a financial tool for planning. The fact that a forecast may have growing drawdowns in future years is okay. That issue by itself does not mandate a tax increase now to address potential forecasted drawdowns. In fact, in prior budgets presented to the BMA by Mr. Lawton himself included such forecasted drawdowns and even deficit projections. You can see, for example, the FY13 budget, also budgets approved during the early 2000s. The FY18 tax increase was intended to last 5 years. Contrary to this initial 5-year forecast, we see that the FY18 tax increase shows it to last 6 years. That fact, in and of itself, establishes that the increase passed last year was too high, and perhaps the tax increase was not needed at all. I contend the dire warnings of adverse rating agency action if there is a tax rate decrease are not only misinformed, but are also unsupported in the city's history. Quite simply, such warnings are improperly asserted in this context. As evidence, the city's budget during the early 2000s and FY13 forecasted drawdowns, yet at no instance did the rating agencies take any negative action regarding the city's credit rating. The city maintained its AAA rating, and there is no basis to suggest that anything else would happen here. In the past 4 years, the city has presented the BMA with consistently underestimated revenues. The estimates have been off by over $1.5 million each year. The board should not rely on such faulty data to further burden the taxpayers. To do so would be irresponsible and adverse to the public interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lawton?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, yes, I did send a memo out dated June 22nd regarding the proposal by Alderman Massey to reduce the tax rate by 11 cents. And I was very strong in my response back to that and to the board because I'm concerned about what this might do to the cities and would absolutely do to the city's long-term financial growth and financial stability. We are required to balance our budget. We are required by financial policies to have a 5-year financial plan. This would absolutely jeopardize the credit rating, and you can almost guarantee that our AAA rating would be downgraded the next time we went out into the market, because this type, and I'll use it again, this type of reckless behavior in terms of introducing tax reductions after the city administrator has presented his budget. In addition to that, it would probably take at least, to get out of this deficit that's going to be created in FY20, $1 million deficit created in FY20, where you begin to completely destroy the city's reserve, you completely to undermine all of our financial policies as it relates to what we promised the bondholders that we would provide for them in bond documents. You can't do that, Alderman Massey. That was a commitment when we agreed to those debts for those bonds, that we would guarantee that we would be there to pay that debt back. The same with all of our contingencies and emergency and catastrophe planning. You would have no reserves. Yes, we draw down reserves, but we do it in a very responsible and well thought out manner so we can draw them down that period of time, not have such a high tax increase. And I must correct you, this is not a tax increase that the board is considering this evening. If you think about it, it's actually a tax decrease from $1.97 to $1.95. And again, I want to make this point, that it would probably take at least, if you reduce the property tax under this proposal 10 cents or 11 cents, by FY21 or 22, you would have to have a 22-cent tax increase to crawl out of the mess that you've created.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Any other questions?
Point of clarification, Mayor. You know, when I was referring to this being a tax increase, I think I noted that it was FY18. It's a carryover tax increase from FY18. It was a 21-cent tax increase. I do have other comments, Mayor.
Yeah,
I can wait till the second round.
Anybody else like to make any comments? Going once? Alderman Massey.
Trying to recall, you went through a lot there, City Administrator, so I'm trying to recall.
He's really bright. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. So, it still goes back to the fact, City Administrator, that we are overtaxing our citizens. We are utilizing fees that are too high. We are really creating a profit, and I just don't believe that that is the appropriate role for government. And I disagree with you about whether or not it would jeopardize our AAA bond rating. The way that you present the budget to us, you don't give the board really many options to cut expenses. We're not presented with alternative solutions to what you and the mayor have offered, and that's really one of the biggest contentions I have with the way things are done, because if we were doing things the correct way, in my opinion, not only would the FAC and board and your staff consider those options, we would have something that offered $1.95 tax rate, and then an option for, say, $1.85 tax rate, and you would be able to provide us with some guidance as to which expenses could be removed to offset the cost there. So that's really what I'm struggling with tonight. It's just that we don't give the taxpayers very many options. You don't give the board very many options. I mean, we're basically presented with your budget, and you're told that, or we're told, these are the projects that I want funded, and that's it. You know, you don't come with us, come at us with options. You know, after the last meeting, when I asked you to project the $1.85 tax rate or $1.84 tax rate, you should have come back to me and said, here's what we can do. Here are the expenses that you can reduce from the budget to make this work. You didn't do that because you don't want it to work. You want to continue increasing the expenses, increasing government, funding smart growth developments at the expense of our taxpayers, and it's wrong. And, you know, I got to be honest with you. I've said this before. You step in and respond. You deliberate as if you're an elected official, and it's really the responsibility of the alderman to make the case for you. And they're not doing that, which tells me that they're either rubber stamping what you're doing, or they don't believe in it, or don't
Massey,
understand.
we understand you have strong opinions. That's all right. But in essence, when you make those statements, you're insulting all 5 of your colleagues. So please tread lightly on that. Continue.
Well, I think I've made the point. I just think that we're taking advantage of our taxpayers with by maintaining this tax rate.
Mayor, I would respond, but is there a question in there for the administration? Thank you.
Are you talking to me? I didn't have a, I don't recall a question.
I think that was a comment. I will point to the board that last year in our structured revenue enhancement, our tax increase, and again in this budget year as well, we start the process in December, and really in earnest, the board works with it from January to this point in time. As a case in point, last year the city administration and the city administrator brought a balanced budget that had a higher tax increase, and this board actually lowered the tax increase. So there's the case in point that actually there is checks and balance, there is give and take. Matter of fact, I had to break the tie last year to set the tax rate. It was a 2-2 vote with an abstention. So it does occur.
Well,
there's a
Mayor,
motion.
It makes a, you've made a good point,
I made a
though.
statement,
well,
sir.
this is a problem, though.
Yeah.
You interject comments, and then you use your position as chair not to let people respond. So just let me respond, if you don't mind.
No, you've had your 2 times on the floor, sir.
So, Mayor,
No.
Respectfully, you can't abuse your position
I'm not
like this,
abusing
Mayor.
my
You
position
are.
as
You're
chair.
interjecting comments into the deliberations
You made,
without allowing
the chair
us
has
to
that
respond.
ability to do so. Your time on the floor is concluded. We move to the question. Is there anyone else who would like to comment or ask a question? Alderman Owens.
Yes, thanks. I do take a little exception, I suppose, to the process. As mentioned, there is a 6-month deliberation that we go through with the FAC and the budget handling and the budget preparation. I know that I attended some of the FAC meetings and have in the past attended several of them. And at that opportunity, there's an option for us as aldermen to speak to certain projects that are on the agenda. Everyone goes through this analysis with a thorough comb, and FAC members who have been in the past highly critical of some of the items that the budget administration has brought forward have an opportunity. And so I do believe there's a thorough analysis that each of us have given the opportunity, and if we have questions that we want to have asked, I have always been given the information that I've requested. And so I guess I just take a little exception to that what Alderman Massey was stating.
Thank you. The floor is open. Anyone else? Alderman Yonda?
Yeah, we have a great process. We win awards for our budgeting, our accounting. We have a great FAC. It's made up of great citizens that contribute highly to the efforts that we have to make this a great city. I mean, there are probably cities our size that have half the budget we have, and they probably suck. But I mean, I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with our procedures. I'm sorry you don't like it, but it's given us AAA bond rating of 2 agencies. We have a staff that has 4% turnover because of the way we deal with this instead of 14%, which is the standard. We have an accredited, and I'm doing this off the cuff, by the way, I don't have a prepared statement. We have an accredited Parks and Rec, which is incredible. This is a great city, and there's nothing wrong going on here. I mean, if we were budgeting and having a deficit, there'd be screaming all over the place on this board, I guess, because we're actually coming out a little bit better than we are because we're conservative. But if we'd have been really losing money left and right, I mean, did we know we were going to spend $3 million or 2.5 now on the boilers? Yeah, the cost went up. Did I think that we were going to be spending 42 cents of our $1.95 on schools? Why don't we just sell them back to Shelby County schools, and that way we'll save money for our taxpayers? I mean, one of the reasons we have growth in this city is because of our schools. I fought for the schools. I don't have a commercial on how much money I've given towards it, but it's incredible. I mean, I'm sorry that things are not going your way, but you need to let it go. You need to let it go, and this city is great. I mean, I lose every once in a while on a vote. I just can't keep carrying it on. John Drennan and I were at odds on several things, but he didn't keep it going up every 6 months or every year. I'm sorry. This is a great city, and I'm not going to allow you to destroy it. So that's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? The question's been called. Yes?
Just one comment on the budget that we have discussed regarding schools, and I know that's coming up, but it is part of the entire budget conversation, and the fact that we as a city have made a decision that within the next 4 years that we are going to eradicate the $26 million worth of deferred maintenance. To take that responsibility, again, that is our responsibility as a funding body, but to be able to go ahead and do that in a timely manner, I think that, again, speaks to the way that we deliberate on a budget that is impactful to students, families, and citizens.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Do I have time left?
You have used your 2 times on the floor, sir. Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Takes us to item 13 on the agenda, ordinance 2018-4, Germantown Municipal School District year-end budget adjustments, third and final reading. Mr. Lawton?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. I will not go through all these budget adjustments that are being recommended, and actually, they have already been approved by the Germantown Board of Education. Mr. Kevin Jones is here if the board has any questions about any of these. Much like you approved the budget adjustments for the city component or portion of the budget, you also are asked to do that for the GMSD budget adjustment, so we can align all those expenditures at the end of the year as we move into the audit process. So you're essentially amending our budget and their budget with these budget adjustments. If the board has any questions, Kevin Jones is here to address those specifically. But again, prior to coming to this body, they've already been vetted and approved by the Germantown Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-4 for Germantown Municipal School District year-end budget adjustments on third and final reading? It's a motion?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Budget adjustments for GMSD carry, and we moved to item
Mayor,
number...
I need to raise a point of order because I made
Sure.
a mistake on our last vote. I voted no on the $1.95 tax rate, and I'm actually going to vote yes for that. So I voted yes for it last time. It is a lower rate, and so I need to correct that.
The way that works. City Attorney, is that acceptable?
No.
We either do it now or next time. There's no reason not to do it.
Excuse me, now, the City Attorney?
Can I interject? Robert Rules of Order allow someone who has voted in the positive to say that we can bring it back up for a report.
Well, but you really don't have that situation where someone who has voted for a motion is asking to reconsider during the same meeting. Alderman Yonner, you would be correct?
I would request that.
All right, so you voted in favor of the tax rate.
If he wants to change his vote to in favor of the tax rate,
you would like to make a motion to reconsider the tax rate. And yes, if that's seconded, that could come before the board tonight.
I make that motion.
Although I think you ought to finish the item that you're on.
Oh, okay.
Which is item number 14, I believe.
I don't think we got there. I think I raised the point of order before we ever got there.
That is correct. We haven't started that presentation yet.
You're on 13.
And I'll second Alderman Yonda's motion. I appreciate it.
All right, so, okay, if there's nothing presently before the board, then yes, Alderman Yonda, having voted for the tax rate, could move to reconsider the tax rate tonight, and if there's a second, you could revote.
Second.
But it has to be a second from who voted for. So it'd have to come from either
I
don't know.
That's the case.
I don't think so. I think as long as someone who voted for the motion
can make the motion to reconsider tonight, and then we'll take it from there.
I'm fine with it.
Clerk Betty, are you clear? All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to call the roll for the last item a second time, in essence. I think it's been stated properly, the motion and the second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, then she could call the roll.
Any discussion? Please call the roll. That would be on item number 12. Correct.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens? Yes. Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Might as well make it unanimous. Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
The motion carries. Brings us to item, and Mr. Jones, do you want to stay or you want to leave?
I'm ready.
Well, we've already made the presentation on.
We have, Mayor, but
we voted on it yet?
Are there any other items?
Where there's the CIP, there's a 5-year CIP,
Okay.
and there may be discussion about school issues there,
Okay.
so.
I stand corrected. You have to stay after class.
Clap the erasers.
All right, so now we are on item, all right, 14. Everyone's got me confused. On item 14 now, is that correct?
No, Mayor, item 13, I don't believe, Ms. Betty, you called the roll on that.
Have you called the roll on item 13?
You did?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Item 14, resolution on revenues, dash 18R01. Patrick?
Mayor and Board, consistent and concurrent with the adoption of the budget each year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen considers a resolution that identifies all the various fines and fees from all of the departments that are in place. Some have changed this year, and they're being brought to you for your consideration. But the resolution on revenues, in addition to the tax rate, are the things that help support the overall operation, albeit a small portion of the overall general fund. They are the fees and the fines that we charge the public for various activities, whether it's membership rate at the athletic club or rental at the Performing Arts Center to a development permit. We try to look at we absolutely look at the market to see what our competitors, what the other cities are doing in regards to these rates to make sure that they're current and consistent and fair. And so before you this evening is a resolution 18R01 to approve the revenue structure that we will have in place. The last thing you want is staff going out during the middle of the fiscal year and changing their fines and fees and rates that we charge our customers. This resolution identifies those, it codifies them, and it's what all the departments will follow where they have revenues associated with the operation, whether it's the recreation fund or, as I mentioned, the Great Hall or the athletic club.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution on revenues, 18R01, and schedules establishing the rates, fines, and fees in the various funds of the City of Germantown for FY19 operating budget?
Move to approve.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Barziza.
Yes, Mr. Lawton, on page 2, document information research fee, is that including FOIAs? Because that's what it's all about, correct?
I don't think there's a change to the FOIs, correct, Michelle? The fees, what page are you on, John? I'm sorry, or Alderman Barziza?
Page 2. Page 2, it's about 1/4 of the way down. In red, it's got document/information research fee from 150, it's slashed 150, and I'm assuming they were it was $150 an hour with the first hour free, and increasing to $300 an hour.
Let Mr. Ross respond to that.
Construction, is it not?
Does it has anything to do with Tennessee open records law?
Good. So this falls under.
Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
This does fall under the fees that were requested by Economic and Community Development. And while it is in part to address some of the FOIA requests that our department receives, A lot of the research that we have to do comes from developers, homeowners, et cetera, that are just looking for history on their properties or for developments that may have happened that don't necessarily fall under the FOIA type of request. And as we've indicated, and as you have, there's a lot of history here in Germantown. So it does take time in some cases to research the history on property. And so we wanted an opportunity to recoup some of that time, because sometimes, and frankly most of the time, it's done in less than an hour. But there are those other times where it takes a significant amount of time to dig into the files and to research items appropriately.
Okay, and this question is for Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, could this be construed also to include freedom of information or open records request on data that is being requested through Ms. Betty on information that's within like emails, what have you, that the city has, any kind of documents that are requested?
Well, I'm not real clear on what Mr. Ross said. I thought he said that this was from Economic and Community Development for research that they do at the request of developers and others regarding title work, those sorts of things. Frankly, I've not heard about this change being relative to public records request at all, but that's not something that's been brought to me. So, Mr. Lawton, Mr. Ross,
we have a policy regarding Freedom of Information Act request, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first hour of any research on that and pulling information together is free. If there are costs associated beyond that, it would be tied to staff salaries associated with pulling that information together. That has not changed. That's included in our FOI request. If it's information that we can provide on a jump drive, there's a cost associated with that. But for example, we've eliminated CDs, and what was the other form, Michelle, that we put it on? Labels, we're not providing that. But there is no change to what the administration and the city clerk's office is doing in regards to processing FOI requests. It's going to be based on that first hour is free, and the other time is going to be associated or tied to staff's time in preparing the information.
So back to Mr. Harris again, please. So both development and what we were just discussing within government, the law applies, or the same rules apply. So you have 1 hour free, and then there's a fee associated after that for each hour.
If I could jump in, if they go through the Tennessee Public Records request, there's a specific form.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a specific form that's associated with that. If our city clerk receives that and it's tied to something in Mr. Ross's area, then those provisions in the Tennessee Open Records Request Act and the way we've adopted the policy would apply.
I'm very clear with what you've got. Thank you. What you've reported. Thank you. No more questions.
Any other questions or comments for staff?
I got to be honest, Alderman Berzizza, based on the answers that I heard, I don't think it's all that clear. My recommendation would be to make a motion to return that to $150. Is this altogether a new fee? I'm very apprehensive whether a citizen is filing a public information request or just asking staff to review a plat for them. I mean, whether it's $150 or $300, that seems excessive to me, particularly the $300. So if we're going from $150 to $300, then I would certainly prefer that we go back to $150. And if this is all new together, then maybe we should consider not implementing this year. This does not speak to transparency, in my opinion.
Do you want to make a motion, sir?
Well, Mayor, am I correct? Alderman Gibson may have something to say. It's the first round, right?
Yeah,
I think I'd like to hear the opinions of everyone.
Sure.
Just had a question. In that first paragraph, the first red line item where it says document information research fee, the first hour is free. Is that correct, Mr. Ross?
If it's filed, if I could jump in, under the Tennessee Public Records Act, that is exactly the policy this board adopted, and that's what we follow. If a request like that comes in and it's on that FOIA form that's very specific, which provides the requester and the city of Germantown the opportunity to look at the information, get back with the requester, give them some type of estimate on what it's going to cost and the time. But if it comes in like that, let's say a development project, somebody completed a TRPA request on, or TPRA request on, would go to Mr. Ross, those laws would apply. If it's something that's put on a jump drive, there's really no copying involved. They can sit and look at that either on the public access computer here, or if they simply want to review the information with staff, they can certainly look at the files, and there's no charge for that information.
And so the justification on for Board of Zoning Appeals variance, that application from 150, I see the red line of 200, then up to 300. What was the thought process in that, again, significant jump?
So staff is spending a significant amount of time on processing applications for Board of Zoning Appeals, for Design Review Commission, for Planning Commission. So there, as you can see from the other adjustments to the resolution on revenues, there's a jump in all of our fee structure. And it's because if I can be succinct in my explanation here, there is no easy project in Germantown anymore. There is no easy variance. If somebody's coming in and asking for an 8-foot fence, our advice to that person is that that's not going to be approved because it doesn't meet the test. That may not occur every time, but a complicated variance requires a significant amount of time spent with applicants, time spent researching it to see what the other history of that property is, to put together the best staff report and information for other people. We looked at fee structures for Bartlett, for Collierville, for Memphis, for Brentwood, for Franklin, and we were by far the lowest in terms of the fees that we provide. And we really just felt like this would bring us in line and would help to supplement some of the staff costs that's associated with this, staff time.
If it's helpful, the way that I view this is not associated with Tennessee Open Records or Freedom of Information Acts. This is more a cost of doing business, an out-of-state developer, or maybe an attorney for a Board of Zoning Appeals applicant, or some other thing. They will take up some amount of staff's time. I don't think the people of Germantown want that performed for free. And staff has other obligations and duties, responsibilities. So this is not associated with open records or freedom of information. It's the cost of doing business as a full-service planning and development department. The floor is still open. Go ahead.
Mayor, just as a follow-up, I appreciate the clarification, but I think the specifics on that Board of Zoning Appeals variance, it's important for us to know that that is the cost of doing business, but it is different than doing an upcharge on a FOIA request. So you've made that clear. That is not what we're doing.
No.
Floor is open. Mayor. Alderman.
Thank you. What is the standard policy for open records charges to our citizens or anyone else for that matter?
As I'd mentioned, they must be a resident state of Tennessee to receive the information. There's a specific form that is provided by the city clerk to the individual. The first hour of research or gathering information is free. As we get back to the individual within the required 7-day period of time, and it gives us the opportunity to take a quick look at the request to determine how much staff time would be involved with it, what is the hourly rate, any type of research that needs to be involved in terms of that's going to dictate the time and the length it's going to take to pull that information together. And then we will provide during that 7-day period, by the end of that 7-day period of time, the requestor who fills out that form with that information is going to cost approximately this based on what we know, and it may be available in a week, or it may be available in a month. But the costs associated with that, first hour is free, but if there's any staff labor and time associated with that, then we'll let the individual know what that was. But it's based upon the hourly rate of the employee pulling the information together. And generally for the public, in recent FOIs, we put that information on a jump drive. There's no charge with that because they're going to view it, and they can simply sit at the public access computer here in People Street and view that information.
But there is no set fee, dollar-wise?
No, sir.
Okay. The labor charges...
Correct, Michelle, you could correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. We did a public policy last year.
Okay, explain to the board.
The state required us to do an open records policy last July.
Right.
And it was approved by the board. The initial charge of 1 hour is waived, and we've also waived anything that takes or costs less than $1. Sometimes we'll have 15 or 30-cent charges. We start off with the free first hour, and then after that, it is based on how much the employee makes per hour.
Right, that's what the law states.
And then they're charged for that. If they want a copy, we put it on a jump drive, and that's a straight $5 to recoup the money for the jump drive. And in addition to that, it would be how many hours that person spent on a large request. They can mark on there that they just want to view the product, and I put it on a public access computer on People Street, and they have to call and make an appointment. I make sure it's loaded, and they're allowed to sit there from 8 to 5 if they want and review that document.
So predicated on what the law states, it's whoever the clerk is that's working on that particular project, if you will.
Yes, sir.
It's based on that person's roughly hour, even though they may be have on salary, it's still broken down onto an hourly rate.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
The current item in front of you, I don't believe Tennessee Open Records is, I've just thumbed through this. I don't think it's part of this fee structure.
I think it should be.
Well, it's dictated by state law, and we've already adopted that policy.
And we have a separate policy,
We
yes,
have a
sir.
separate policy.
Well,
That this body adopted.
One thing I don't understand, I'm an elected official, and the mayor instructed staff not to respond to my information request unless
Well, that's not accurate, sir.
Point of order. We have the memorandum.
Point of order.
It is accurate.
Point of order, Vice Mayor.
If y'all want to rebut what I'm saying,
This is not germane to this
It's very
particular
germane.
resolution.
Please, she has a point of order. Go ahead.
We are discussing something that we've had clarification that this is not about FOIA. This is about the fees associated within our packet on this resolution.
The memo you so discuss went out to the entire board, and it is involved with the specific wording in our ordinance that staff has to conduct their business to create services for the community, provide public service. Aldermen will be given the ability and grant and access, but when it takes up their time where they can't conform to and perform their duties, then you go through the Tennessee Open Records. So thank you. You are
Mayor,
correct. I stated that in the memo.
Listen, you're being defensive. Every time I bring something up, you automatically take it as a personal attack. The only thing I was going to, let me finish, please. Let me finish, please.
That way. You made an accusation yourself. Continue,
Mayor,
please. You have the floor.
The fact is that you issued the memo for us to request the information through the public records request. And so my question was simply going to be, why are we not making that same requirement of the people who are coming through and asking for other information? If it's a requirement for us, why don't we use the same process for the public? It wasn't a personal attack on you. You need to relax a little bit. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you do. So we are doing what we are back to business, Alderman Yonda. So I just think it's reasonable. We already have the fee structure in place for the public records request. There's no need, in my opinion, to add this $300 for document information research fee. I mean, it's just.
Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Or is it currently $150? Is that? It's hard to tell here. It was both of them are red, so it's difficult to tell if this was an existing. Yeah, it's brand new.
Hold harmless agreement processing fee. It's the fee above it.
Yeah.
So this is a brand new fee.
We've never had this in the past. I think we can use the public records request to charge for some of these things. I don't see the need for this. I am going to make a motion that we remove document information research fee.
You have that, Clerk? That's in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I think we have, are you going to make a clarification?
Is there a second, please? Hold on.
Second.
All right. Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
No.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Please read the motion again.
I can't read it verbatim. I'm sorry.
I'd like someone to offer the motion in a way that we know exactly what we're voting on.
Please restate your motion, Alderman Massey, please.
Make a motion to remove document information research fee from FY19 general fund revenues.
Do you have that, Clerk?
No, would you please repeat it?
If you could please repeat it for the clerk.
Make a motion to remove document / information research fee.
Okay.
It's been motioned and properly seconded.
Can
And the roll has...
Can I ask a question about the motion? No.
Or you can ask a point of inquiry if you like.
No. I just, I guess a point of inquiry, yes. Okay.
Continue, yeah.
Yeah, so my question is, we're approving these revenues and fees. At some point during the fiscal year, can we not go back and modify this, or is this we set for the fiscal year?
It's a resolution.
So, okay.
Alderman, you can, no, you can adjust that.
You can.
And there may be times during the fiscal year that we would come to you and say, we need this to be included in the resolution on revenues. But because it is a resolution, it would take one motion or one action by this body to change, as opposed to the budget ordinance, which would take 3 readings and open the whole thing up.
So I'm okay with removing this for now. I would like some clarification. I'd like to get with Mr. Ross or Mr. Lawton to get a little bit better explanation.
And Mayor, just so you know, if it's determined that we need to increase this for some reason, Alderman Owens, if you talk to me and here and we decide that it needs to be added back, then, you know, if there's a reason for it, then we can do it. But I just think there's other ways to accomplish it.
Good point, good point. You had a point of inquiry. It's been asked and answered, and so let's go ahead and continue with the roll call.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
No.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
The amendment carries. We're back to the original motion. That's to approve the revenues for FY19. It's been motioned and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution for fees have been set. Takes us to item 15 on the agenda, Resolution CIP Policy 18R15. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Included in the city's financial policies, there are a number of things that deal with capital improvement planning, in addition to other items regarding our financial policies. This particular one is to really hold staff's feet to the fire when this body adopts a capital improvements plan for the current fiscal year. It's up to us to move those projects forward and to make sure that, because they were a priority, when the board adopted the budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, that we move forward and do what we need to do to make them happen, because they were a priority that we identified. So several years ago, we included a policy in 2005 that is called the sunset policy. So if a project doesn't move forward in a timely fashion during a fiscal year, for whatever reason, then the project is sunset, it's not rebudgeted, it goes away, perhaps to be considered next year when we do our prioritization for capital projects. In this particular case, in order to lift the sunset provision, the board is asked to adopt a resolution that would do just that. In this case, we're talking about the additional funding that's left over, if you will, in the $500,000 that we had to do a project in FY18 as part of the Parks Master Plan. When the board approved the Parks Master Plan last year, we identified funding in the amount of $500,000. I believe Alderman Owens recommended that we take it from the streetscape project. However, we are not going to be able to spend all of those dollars. So of that $500,000 that was made available, there's $316,000 left that we would like to move into the FY19 CIP to implement some of those park master plan projects. And that's essentially what this resolution does. It lifts the sunset provision that's already in place.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 18R15, the Capital Improvements Program policy in regards to the enforcement of the sunset provision in FY18?
So moved.
Is a motion?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Motion carries. Move to item number 16 on the agenda, Resolution Capital Improvements Program, 18R02.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. As I mentioned during the presentation on the budget, when the board approves the fiscal year 19 budget, and you adopted that this evening, you appropriated funding for next year for the FY19 projects that were identified. Proper budgeting, good management, what GFOA would be looking for us to do, and what we have done is incorporate within our financial policies the need to have a 5-year capital improvements plan. So this is also adopted by resolution, and it's divided up under a number of different categories. So as we look to the future and what our 5-year plan looks like, we have a pretty good idea of what projects are going to be coming forward because they've been vetted with our capital improvements team. We had a work session, obviously, with the Financial Advisor Commission on these capital projects and also with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to look at the long-term implication of moving these projects forward, the necessity to move these projects forward, but just as important as that is to identify the funding resources associated with those projects. We've identified in this 5-year CIP those projects that will be funded out of city reserves. Those are our ongoing reserves that we use to pay cash for these projects. We've identified those projects where we anticipate receiving grant funding to make that happen, or where we anticipate receiving state and federal money, for example, a number of our road projects to assist that. We've also identified in the funding sources where we plan to issue debt to fund those projects, such as eventually Fire Station number 3 in the outer years, and the addition, if it presents itself and is necessary in 20, for the addition at Houston Middle School. All these projects, and the importance of the 5-year capital plan, we also incorporate that into our 5-year financial model, because debt service absolutely has to be accounted for on an operating expense during that 5-year period of time, and we also need to identify where we can those projects that are going to impact the city's reserves and where we're drawing down those reserves to fund those projects. So what you have in front of you is the 5-year CIP. You've already authorized the funding in FY19, but this goes from FY20 to 24, and it's divided up into various categories, whether it's general government, major roads, intersections, drainage, parks, the Germantown Athletic Club, municipal schools, and the utility fund. At the last page, we also provide you with a funding summary of the CIP, where the dollars are coming from each one of those areas, whether it's utilities or the general fund, and how the projects will be financed during the 5-year period. You're adopting this by resolution because next year we'll be back to you with another 5-year CIP, and during the year, priorities may change. Things may move up in priority from, let's say, FY22 to 20, and so we have the flexibility when we come back to you during the budget process to amend this, this CIP and bring it back to you in the form of a resolution. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those regarding the funding, also regarding the projects themselves, but more importantly, staff, the department heads, and all these projects, there is a project manager with all these capital projects, and those folks are represented here this evening. If I'm not able to address those questions, I will call upon, say, Mr. Mills or Mr. Gwaltney or Mr. Rogers to address those particular capital projects, and certainly from a funding model, the budget and performance team.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 18R02, establishing a capital improvements program for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2019 through 2024? there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
I think I'm going to vote yes on this.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Resolution carries. We move to item 17 on the agenda, change order number 1, Germantown Road Streetscape Improvements and Project Closeout. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let the budget crew clear out.
Mayor, can I say something? I'm remiss. I
Please.
should have said this during the presentation on the budget itself. Sherry, don't leave. Your budget performance team does an amazing job in preparing the budget and the hours of work that goes into it and their dedication to making sure that they're looking after the best interests of the city when it comes to our finances. And I'll extend that to Mr. Gabb, who we're glad to have back on a team on a part-time basis, and Mr. Heisman. But I also want to extend all the budget work, Mayor and Board, to the department heads as well, because they turn in very responsible budgets. They're not asking for pie in the sky. They know the situation that we're dealing with. They know we need to fund IRP and everything that's associated with the benefit package. So when they submit budgets, it's not a tug of war with them in terms of what needs to happen, because I guarantee you these professional men and women around this room, they understand what it takes to run the city, and they understand what it takes to preserve our policies, our rating, and truly be good financial stewards. So they do a terrific job. Thank you.
Well stated. Thank you. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Change order number 1, Germantown Road Streetscape Improvements and Project Closeout. The purpose of this agenda item is to approve change order number 1 for this project along with the project closeout. This would increase the contract amount with Farrell Paving by $72,223.46 and take the project total to $792,634.46. Just a little bit of background, the city utilized Alta Planning and Design starting in 2016 to work with the city and residents to come up with the streetscape design manual for the Central Business District in Old Germantown. Subsequent parts of that contract were for design documents for the Germantown Road Streetscape Improvement Project, and part of that was coming up with cost estimates and recommended implementation strategy within the Old Germantown District to design and build the recommendations from the plan. The project was approved for construction by the board last June. Farrell Paving submitted the lowest base bid amount, and the board also selected alternate 1, which was the cold plane and overlay for Poplar Pike and Germantown Road, and alternate 2, which was the planning and furnishings, which took this to a total construction contract award amount of $720,411. We started this project construction in August of 2017. The contractual end of the project was December 31st, 2017. The project was substantially complete prior to Thanksgiving, much to the relief of Germantown Commissary and those folks that get their smoked turkeys from the commissary. Punch list items and implementation of the landscaping extended into a better planning season, so March of 2018. In your agenda sheet was a summary of the contract overages and a small contract decrease. The combined contract quantity overruns and underruns resulted in an additional $22,776.01 to the contract, and then other items necessary for the completion added up to approximately $49,000. Attachment 3 is the change order summary, which provides a line item list for the quantity overruns and underruns. And what this essentially amounted to, though, if I'm to summarize everything, is that we were able to save some cost by utilizing the existing drainage that was in the area, But when we got out and basically ripped up the road and started laying down new asphalt and started implementing the plan, there were design changes that were requested by the businesses in the area and design changes that were necessary for queuing and other right-of-way improvements to function correctly that were required. And so we worked with the Germantown Commissary, with Hodges Law Firm, with the Germantown United Methodist Church, and with Southern Social to make sure that these requests were accommodated and that the project turned out to be as good as we had all envisioned it through the planning process. We are available for questions if you'd like to discuss those with myself or the city engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve Germantown Road Streetscape Improvements Change Order Number 1 in the amount of $72,223.46, increasing the limit of an existing construction contract with Farrell Paving Incorporated to an amount of $792,634.46 and to close out the project? Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Second. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Project is closed out. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Takes us to item number 18 on the agenda, change order number 8, Wolf River Lateral G, drainage improvements and project closeout. Mr. Ross and Gwaltney?
Yes, we're going to take this one together.
Like Glenn Levitt? Go ahead, continue, please.
So this is change order number 8 for the Wolf River Lateral G drainage improvement as well as project closeout. Working with ACUF Enterprises, doing business as Scott Contractors, and this is to increase their contract amount by $109,877.23 to a total contract price not to exceed $2,479,156.39, as well as a budget adjustment 1880 to go along with the project closeout. As this board remembers, starting in 2014, there was significant discussion around improvements for Lateral G and the 30 homes that are in this watershed. The board approved a contract in May of 2016 in the amount of $2,290,000, $2,290,036.50 for the Wolf River Lateral G Drainage Improvements Project. As stated, this was to improve the drainage in the area, as FEMA had indicated that once the project was complete, that a conditional letter of map revision would be issued, and then a full letter of map revision would be issued. The FEMA floodplain map revision will remove the 30 homes from the floodplain. Change orders 1 through 7, totaling $79,242.66, were approved by this board at the October 10th, 2016 meeting, which increased the project to approximately $2,369,000. The project is now complete. Mr. Gwaltney will discuss the remaining items that ETI is working on.
Thank you, Cameron. Yes, the ETI, our design consultant, is working on the as-built for the project. Basically what that is a field survey of the constructed product to ensure to FEMA that what they approved conditionally has been built and is going to function as they had reviewed and anticipate it to. That work should be done within the next month, then submitted to FEMA. We're anticipating the flood revisions by the end of this calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve change order number 8 in the amount of $109,877.23, increasing the limit of an existing construction contract with ACUF Enterprises Incorporated, DBA Scott Contractors, for the Wolf River Lateral G drainage improvements to an amount of $2,479,156.39 and approve budget adjustment number 18-80.
Move to approve.
It's a motion.
Second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Yonda.
This is like the gift that keeps on giving. Are we almost through?
It's about to be closed out.
We're not, there's not going to be another adjustment. This is a final adjustment.
This is going to close out the project, yes.
I love it.
Alderman Owens.
Mayor, it should be noted that ETI, the company I work for, did the design on this project, and I don't think this particular agenda item has anything related to the design. However, I'm going to recuse myself just to better safe than sorry.
The record will reflect your recusal. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
All right, we have closeout, or will have closeout. Item 19 on the agenda, contract extension number 1 and amendment number 2, library services agreement. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor. As the board is aware, we've had a very successful relationship with our library services provider since they took over the operation under a management contract with the city in 2004 when Memphis-Shelby County was no longer going to fund library operations. Our librarian, Mr. Daniel Page, is here this evening. But before you this evening is an amendment to the contract with a 3% increase essentially to the contract in FY19 with LSSI. There's also an amendment to the contract in the amount of $69,461.99 for cataloging projects that have been going on but have been funded by the foundation that was put in place for the library. That's not the best use of those foundation dollars, and so administration's recommendation is that we move those dollars to the general fund budget for the library. So that would increase the total contract price to $1,413,747.99. With the adoption of the budget this evening, part of your action this evening was also in regards to this contract, so we wanted the budget to go first, and also for funding of these additional positions, again, that currently are being funded by the foundation that was established for the library.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to extend the existing library services agreement with is it LSS now? No longer I, correct? Is there a motion to extend the existing library services agreement with LSS Incorporated for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019 in the amount of $1,344,286 and to amend said agreement by adding $69,461.99 for the Germantown Regional History and Genealogy Center cataloging project during the same period for a total of $1,413,747.99. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Vice Mayor Owens, or I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gibson. It's getting late.
Just a quick comment. I would like to thank the board for approving this just under $70,000 budget item for the cataloging project at the Genealogy Center. It is important work that they do there. We have become, it is a regional genealogy center, and so I want to thank them for the work that they do. And Daniel, thank you again for your leadership.
Very well stated. Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
It carries. Let the record reflect that Alderman Massey is...
He said he was not feeling well and he had to leave.
Okay. Let the record reflect he left at the onset of this presentation. That takes us to item number 20 on the agenda, contract police firing range. Deputy Chief, Bright?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Board of Aldermen, the purpose of this agenda item is to consider approval of a contract with Range Systems Incorporated in the amount of $259,487 and approval of budget adjustment 18-112 for the replacement of the existing police department indoor firing range, bullet trap, and target system. Just a little history. The current range, built in 1988, the police indoor range is a 25-yard, 6-lane indoor facility where department personnel participate in firearms training and mandatory qualifications with assigned weapons. The department also allows other local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to utilize the facility for training. The bullet trap system is original to the facility and is well beyond its usable life. The size of the department has grown significantly since the facility was built, resulting in many more hours of use and wear. The existing bullet trap system is a baffle-style design composed of steel deflection plates. Projectiles enter the trap where they fragment after contact. The broken projectile fragments are collected in many trays located at the base of the trap. At times, partial projectile fragments backsplash towards the shooters, which causes a safety concern. The department has established minimum safe shooting distances in an effort to minimize the risk of backsplash injuries. The proposed project before you would replace the existing original bullet trap with an up-to-date system designed to provide safe, environmentally friendly, and noise-reducing bullet capture. Newly designed bullet trap systems allow for improved recycling as well. The project will also include the replacement of the current fixed-mounted steel target holders with a target system designed to create a dynamic, realistic firearms training environment that challenges users to build skill and decision-making. The range system's proposal allows firing distance of 0 to 25 yards and increases our field of fire to 180 degrees. It further provides moving targets and allows for a 360-degree target rotation, allowing for improved decision-making and decision-based training. The range system bullet trap will allow for rifle fire on the range, which has previously been held off-site. The bullet trap also serves to dampen noise levels and contain lead dust. The range system's acoustic baffle system and ballistic sidewall support rifle fire and serve to dampen noise levels. The addition of acoustic panels throughout the remainder of the range will further support sound dampening. And we also have Captain Mike Fisher and Captain Nick Godwin that are present as well, who made a site visit to Range Systems to further evaluate their product.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Is there a motion to approve a contract with Range Systems Incorporated in the amount of $259,487 for the replacement of the existing police department indoor firing range, bullet trap, and target system, and approval of budget adjustment number 18-112?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Appreciate you guys staying long hours for us and your field work on this.
Alderman Yonda?
I may have missed the filtration system, lead dust, et cetera. We're enhancing that, are we not?
The new system is a rubber block-based trap, which will capture the bullets more intact and basically almost make lead dust non-existent. So should also benefit firearms instructors and range personnel, and maybe extend the life of our air handling system.
And you also mentioned about recycling. It's not going to be that gunk like we have now in the bottom of the range?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Motion carries. We have a new firing range. That brings us to the conclusion of the regular agenda. Now we entertain the consent agenda. I'll read each item into the public record. Item 21A, appointment to the Library Board. Item B, appointment to Senior Citizen Advisory Commission. Item C, appointments to the Education Commission. Item D, contract for city signs. Item E, contract for Greenway restroom and lift station replacement. Item F, contract for Greenway storage Cameron Brown Park. Item G, bid rejection, COG 2018-29, tennis court repair and resurfacing. Item H, lease extension number 2, copy machines. Item I, purchase court software annual subscription fees. Finally, item J, purchase tennis courts resurfacing Municipal Park and C.O. Franklin Cooperative. A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Move to approve.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mayor, I'm so
Yes,
sorry,
go ahead.
and I
Vice
know it's
Mayor?
the very end of the night, but because of who is leaving the Education Commission and who is coming on, I feel like I just need to say two things. Dr. Dino Palazzolo has served our city exceptionally well. He was the founder, co-founder of the Einstein Trophy, the Battle of the Brains competition, which is the largest event that we do with the Education Commission. And Miss Julia Gainey, she is not going to be serving with us again, but has been a wonderful member of that team. They will be leaving, but we have two wonderful board members, Ms. Brenda Dew, who I first met. She worked with students at Germantown Elementary School, and then through our church, and then Dr. Patricia Tormina, who is an assistant superintendent with Shelby County Schools that will be retiring and is choosing to spend her retirement serving her city. So again, just am thankful for that, and thank you for the moment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for those kind comments. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
The consent agenda carries and is approved. I'll just spend a quick moment echoing the sentiments of City Administrator Patrick Lawton. I'd like to personally thank the 400 full-time employees that we have and the 200 or so part-time employees for making Germantown a community of choice, not only in this region, this state, but in this country. You know, the staff does incredible amount of work, every department head, budget and performance, finance, putting together a comprehensive budget. I'd also like to thank the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Without the Aldermen's support, even if it's 60% of their support, we do not have a budget that carries. We do not build new schools or pave roads without approval of a budget. And just anecdotally, I was in a meeting with with the municipal mayors, and Mayor Strickland, I congratulated him on moving from AA- bond rating to traditional AA, and his comments were, we consider that a litmus test of improving financial capacity and being good fiscal stewards of our tax dollars. We will hope to strive to be like you, Mayor Mike, and be AAA one day. And then I looked to my colleague in the town of Collierville that has to raise taxes this year, and he mentioned to me as well, I wish I was in your situation in Germantown not having to do this. We are adjourned. Have a great day, or what's left of it.